Whoa! Today we're going to talk about fixing some of the crashes that are occurring after we've imported our character into Remix. As you know, for Brian, we changed his rig, so a lot of the exterior components crash. If you try and do any kind of B moves, if you try and do certain attacks such as his up smash or his tilts, or even if you try and shield, the ROM will crash. Now, why is that? That's because in the moveset commands inside of the main file, even inside of the shield pose, it's all pointing to different references that have changed. The bones originally were based off of Mario's skeleton, so the shield pose would point to that specific skeleton. But because we changed the rig, because we added in a bunch of bones, now it's pointing to the wrong location, and then the whole thing crashes. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix the shield pose. As you see right here, there is a wiki associated with Smash 64 modding that was created by Shino. This is really helpful when it comes to trying to make changes or fix things. We're going to follow this guide slightly to help us with what we're after. I wanted to bring this up because it's important to remember that when we are importing our character, the main file is being changed as well. So that means once I've imported the new shield post, I have to export my main again. So we're going to be exporting the two files at the end of it. Now, let's take a look at this. If I go down to Maya, here is Brian. As you can see, I have my standard skeleton, my standard rig, as well as one frame of his idol. For fixing the shield pose, we have to make 3 animations. Technically 4. If you don't have an idol, make that, and then come back and make the shield pose. We're going to transition the idol into shield on, then we will have the shield pose proper, and then we have a shield off. All of those are required to fix that specific part of the problem. So, first things first, what makes a good shield pose? Well, if we want to look at what we have inside of this guide, it specifically says shield on is 4 frames and shield off is 12 frames. So in Maya, we can come down here and we can change our track. 4 frames. That means here it's 4 frames. What we want to do is we want to get Brian in a shielding kind of pose by here. And all that requires is us doing is moving all of his parts around. So he's shielding, so let's say Brian is leaning back. Maybe I can have him rotate a little bit, like there. Let's move that arm. All right. Nope, let's go up. Move that forward. I'm gonna put this in front of him, like this. It's too close. Put that there. And then for this hand, we're shielding, so let's pull it up, pull it in, pull it out. There we go. So let's take a look at this. Yoink. That's not too bad. Yoink. Now, we do want to take a look at this last bone here. This one technically is where the shield will be placed. So we want to have this in the right position for when shield happens. And since I'm going to have it in the idle, I'm going to have shield being about right here. So let's put this here, place it down. There we go. And that's good enough, I'd say, for a shield pose. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak it a little bit and make a more animated version. Let me cut back. I went in, I tweaked it a little bit more because I didn't want the staff going through his foot, so I moved it. There we go, shield. That's how he's going to shield. Once we have done that, we want to bake our animation as usual. You take the rig, you bake the animation, move on. Then we export it. In Blender, it's the same thing. Just take the rig, export it. We don't need any parts associated with the export, so technically we would want to delete all the rooms. That way it's just the skeleton and export that. In Maya, I can just export what I select. In Blender, you need to delete everything except for the rig itself and then export it. After we've done that, we will have the first step of our animation. Then what we need to do is modify it so that we can move into the shield pose. Let's go back to the guide real quick. The shield pose is on its own file with its own rig. The rig has an extra bone attached to it. You open your shield on animation in the editor, clean up to only the last frame, and start with the last bone, renaming everything down the pipeline. And then we want to make a new bone and attach it. So what does all this mean? What this means is that the rig is different for the shields. Let's take a look. What does that mean? Well, as you can see here, I make Brian move. Well, what that means specifically is I go to all of this and I get rid of all of my frames that I just created. So now it's just this one frame. There. We are there. Now, we have this. We're going to want to add in our new bone. What do? Well, first we need to add a bone. In Blender, follow the steps. Create a bone, move things around. I'm going to do this here in Maya because that's where I'm doing my rigging. What I need to do is I need to go to rigging, skeleton. We're going to create a joint. And then what I need to do is create a joint here. So I'm going to replace this with a new bone. Now, in Maya, you have to set it to orthogonal. So let's do front. And then after we've done that, we're going to show the bone. There it is. Create a new bone. I wanted to make sure I added something. Once we have created that new joint, we actually need to move it into the right place. The old joint needs to replace the prior parent joint, meaning they need to be in the same place. I know I put it at the bottom. That was actually the wrong spot. So if you see here, I have the new bone present. Let's collapse things so you can see it. The new bone, the old rig, the large item joint. If you notice, I have them in the same place. So in Maya, it's very easy to do. We just need to go in here and make sure that this is all set to 0, 0, 0, and that this one right here is set to the same location it was prior. For me, that's easy. It was at 150. That just puts it in the right spot. That way, the new parent joint works the way we want it to. I wanted to make sure that was there. Once you've added your new bone, make sure it is in the same location as the old parent joint, and then attach the parent. So as you can see here, I just created a new joint, but this joint is special because this is here the new top joint, the new joint. So I'm going to move this down here. So notice how I moved the rig. I took my old rig and I attached it to this new bone I created. Then this bone has to move as well. Instead of it being attached to the original, we're going to move it up to the next one. So our final large item joint now is part of joint. You can see here that is all messed up with the names. So what we need to do now is step through the process and rename every single bone. They all increment up by 1. If you're doing this in Blender, the new joint, the new bone becomes 0. The old 0 becomes 1, and so forth. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3. And for me, since this is how Maya does it, I rename all of these bones 7, and then we move over to 490, and we keep going down the line. And eventually, this last bone will become the next one. What does this mean for our ultimate end goal? If we look at our bone rigging information, we know for a fact that Smash 64 has up to 22 bones. Here. You have up to 22 bones. 34 parts. Because of the shield rig and how it's set up, any rig you make, don't go above part 21 because the shield pose is going to use the last part. So do remember that. Try and keep it less than the max. Now, I am going to clean this rig up and we're going to look at animating our shield pose. So give me a second. Okay, so here is a prepared shield pose that I've created prior. We're going to walk through it a little bit. As you can see, the rig, we have our new bone, 48, our ending bone, 511. It is one more than the others. As you see where it's attached, it is attached to the new bone we added. Let's take a look. As you can see Brian here, he does moves around a bit. Any given bone, you can see increments here. So what does this mean? Let's take a look at our file here. We are dealing with assigned angle poses. Alright? Essentially that means you're going to create a new frame every 45 frames, new set frame for the new position. When it comes to the shield pose, we're going to want to mimic this here. This right here is based off of Mario. It was created by Fray. What this allows us to do is it allows us to know the center, and then we need to match these points. So how are we going to do that? You can jerry-rig it and just mimic it as much as you want, or you can use this as a reference because we know for a fact where the points are. The point is based off of where this bone is sitting. So we see here, here's the bone. We can, oh, we wanted the center actually. We had the center right here in the middle. It's based off of the center. So we had the center here right in the middle near Brian. But because we're now making the roundabout of the shield pose, we have to move it over to where it's meant to be. If we think about it, it would have been right here. If we check in our editor, we can see the values being 15 right there. What does that mean? It would have been 13 up, 15 across. If we go back into our little sheet here, we take a look. 15. We'll go right around here. 120. That's probably attached with more. Yeah, it's attached with more because of the bone top joints position. This bone's at 150, as you can see. So it's going up 150 already. And then we're adding 13 on that. So 150 plus, let's make it 15, so we can do it in increments of 5. 150 plus 15 is 165. Let's go back here, set this at 165. There we go. So this right here is basically where Brian has his shield center. That means for this point, we want to have it at 105, 165. That means if we go back into our editor here, 105, 165, if I set this to 165, it's right there. One thing I would recommend while you're working on this bone is you can't really see it. And since we're only exporting the rig, attaching some things to it will help. Make a square, make a cube. I made a little ion sphere here. I attached it exactly where the bone is. That way I can visualize it as I move it around. But, as you can see, this is where the bone should be. So, once we've done that, I moved it in actually, so I need to probably tweak my shield pose, make it more accurate. This is where the bone should be. And then we want to follow that around. If you look at the increments, we're doing in 45s. And the reason why is when we export this, we're going to chop this up into parts. Importing it requires 8 separate shield pose animations. That's what we're required to have. And we're going to be moving counterclockwise. So you start here on the right, then you're going to go diagonal up, up, diagonal back, and back. Diagonal down, down, forward down, and back to forward. So you're going to end where you started. So let's play this. If you notice, if I look at all of the frames I baked, they are all falling onto this exactly. This is required. Every movement has to be in the 45 intervals. Now then, we have done this. We've made our animation, we moved it around. What are we going to do? Well, in Blender, delete every model. Just delete, 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 delete. They're all gone. So you just have your rig. Alright, once that's done, you take your skeleton, and now we're going to have to start exporting. So what I do, I save my file, I delete this. Notice how it's now just 0 to 45. I set my frames to 45. Then I want to export. File, export my selection. Actually, you don't need to highlight all of it, just the top will work. File, export selection. We're going to put it in our folder, and this is going to be shield pose 1. 0 to 45, export. All right. Those is pretty normal. I wouldn't worry about them for Maya. All right. Now we've done that, let's back out. Some of them changes. Backed them out. Then we're going to go up. What's the next frame? 46 to 90. So that's our next frame. So what do we do now? We delete this one. We go in here, we delete all of these. You see that? Now, we're going to take these frames here, 45 up to 90. I'm going to put them at 0. Okay. And then I'm going to set this to 45. As you can see here, that's the next step. File, export selection, and that's going to be shield pose 02. All right. Then we repeat this process for all the other ones. So let's do that. You can see here, I've loaded up 2 of the exported shield poses from the 8. I just wanted to show you. Notice how he's moving in tandem together, different parts. That's what we want to see. It's all going to be based off of the 45, 0 to 45. All right? That's where we're going to end up with. Once you have done that with all of your shield poses, now we have to do shield pose off. So let's take a look at that. When it comes to shield pose off, we are essentially doing the reverse of shield pose on. You want to go with the shield pose on pose and just have him exit it. Let's take a look at that guide one more time. If we look here, let's go up, shield pose off. It's roughly 12 frames. We look at the test animation I made. As you can see, we have 12 frames. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, and that's off. Shield pose off is using the original rig. You only need to add the bone for shield pose. On and off, use the original rig. We will import them special, and we'll discuss that in a minute. But for the most part, you're going to use your original rig here. We're going to export that as well. Now we have all the animations that are required for Brian to have a proper shield pose. We have our shield pose on, which goes from idle to our shield pose in 4 frames. We have our shield pose off, which goes from the end of shield pose on back to idle. And then we have the shield pose, which is going to be starting on the right and moving counterclockwise around the circle at 8 points every 45 frames, up to 360 so that we see it move around. Now we have all that in place, let's import it. How are we going to import the shield pose? Well, let's find our base ROM. Remember, we made a ROM, we put the character model in it, we're going to use that. If we go into our character folder and find our ROM, here we have Brian. Let's see here. If I go down in his animation dropdown, we will find shield pose on and shield pose off. Let's see if we can find it. Shield pose on and shield pose off. All right, I've already imported his shield pose here. Let's take a look. What you do is you go here and you want to do 2 things. If you are doing what I did, we are keeping all of our bones. Is that effective? Yes, but it also makes it larger. If you want to remove your withheld parts, you can, in theory, have a smaller shield pose and it will work without needing to set this flag. But because I am not changing that, I'm having all the withheld parts there, when I import it, I have to go down here and I have to force re-enable skip tracks. Then I just import my animation. If we go in here and we find our shield pose on animation, we just import. And let's take a look here. Notice here it's set to A C00000. We need to keep this offset. That's important for our file. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. This is done. We need to export the bin. As usual, you just export animation bin. We can call this shield pose. Shield pose off. And that can go into our Plus Remix character folder. Now comes the hard part. Inside of the editor, we need to find the Mario shield pose. Whoever character you're modifying, find their shield pose. As you see here, Mario and Luigi shield pose. We want to edit this. Nothing's here. That's because it's just a rig. We have to import the different rig to begin with. So we go in here, find your shield pose. I created a single file, I called it shield pose neutral, that allowed me to have the last frame of my shield pose. It's containing the brand new rig. We have to import that. So we import that. Let's find it. It would be in my animation folder. I called it shield pose neutral, and we want to import that. It's just the shield pose. Once that is done, now we have to import each part around the wheel. If you go down here to special parts, you will see part 0, 1 through 8. This is what we're importing. You click on part 01. You edit the tracks. You want to clear all the commands, and then you want to import commands. This is how you're going to be importing, well, not import commands. You want to go down here and you want to import an animation from an object. Then here you find your shield pose in question and you import it. You should see 2 lines, or 1 line, depending on how you export it. But these 2 lines here is the start and the end. Every part of the pose will look like this. Okay? And you have to do this for each one. Do that for part 1. We go down to part 2. You go in, you clear your commands, you import the animation track, you find pose 2 and import it. Once this is done, we're going to need to write the ROM. All right. I'm going to save my shield pose being complete. After that, we need to export. So we go back into our game configuration, tools, game configuration. We load up the ROM we just modified, and we need to export our main file again. So let's find Mario main. See Luigi, I must have missed it. Let's go back up. I put main. Yeah, that should be fine. Mario's main character file. We want to export this again. And you saw how we did that last time. We just save the file, export the bin. We also need to do Mario's shield pose. So you find Mario. There's his character file. We can export that. You'll see Mario shield pose. Remember, we want to document our offsets and save the file. Once that's done, we come back here. As you can see here, I have 00C4 for my shield pose. If I was using what I just exported, it's now 00AC. So we put 00AC there. Same offset. Exported, we are good. You go to your folder, And inside your folder, you're going to copy the shield pose bin we just exported from the editor. This one becomes shieldpose.bin inside this folder. In your animations, you're going to copy shield on and shield off. Shield on, shield off. After you've done that, now you go into your ASM. So here we have Brian's ASM, right? Let's find shield. We're going to need to make our shield drop. We'll do that in a second. So shield on, notice here, 0AC000000. That's because I did that on flag for my import. Shield off, don't really need it. Shield on, definitely need it. This right here is saying for the action shield on, use the animation I made. Use this as its offset. For shield off, use that animation. Don't need to do any moveset commands. Shielding is practically the same for every character. If you do want to add a sound effect or you want to add a new model part, you're going to have to modify that and then include that here with your moveset commands as prior. Let's take a look at shield drop since I just saw it and I know I forgot about it, but it's always worth remembering. Let's go take a look at shield drop. Pass shield drop animation right here. So let's take a look at what this is, shall we? Is this important? Survey says probably. That's my... Yeah, that looks like shield off. I might have used shield off as this one as well, or I might have a separate animation. Point is, let's make that one as well and import it. Export it for shield drop. Probably can be different for everybody. I don't remember. But we have our animations. Let's use it. Once we've gotten all those things exported and we have them hooked up in our ASM, being, again, having them set up with the correct flag. Now let's test. So let's build our ROM like we normally do. We'll take a minute to build. All right, now that we have our ROM created, let's take a look at it, shall we? Let's go into our extra character ASM. Watch it crash because Project 64 does this on me sometimes. Alright, let's go into here. Now, if everything worked correctly, did you see here? That's a little glitch. I think it's due to the drop, but there, Brian. There's his up, there's his down, shield. That is how Brian works. Pretty sure you can hit him in the back. Good enough. There you go. Shield behind. Alright. So, this is how you add the shield pose in Smash 64. You will run into problems. I will say that right now. I had a lot of difficulty getting this to work. And the main reason I found out to be is the rig was not correct. The shield on leads directly into the shield pose. If shield on is broken, shield pose will break. Shield off, I didn't have as much problems, but that's one of the reasons why you have to make sure that you import all of your withheld parts, because the shield pose is going to sort of use the shield on, the last frame of your shield on, as a reference. If the character parts are exploding everywhere, then either your shield on pose is messed up, or your rig is messed up. But the goal is to just import the parts over a fresh ROM and see how it goes. I hope this helps. Shield pose is one of the more annoying parts of getting the ROM so it doesn't crash. Once that's out of the way, for the most part, you're just looking at your B moves. Moveset commands are easy. You go in and you just delete the offending part. Like if it's asking for a new... Like let's take a look at Mario's up smash, for example. He would do a big punch in the air. It replaces the fist with a bigger fist. Well, because I moved Brian's parts around, that moveset command is referencing something that doesn't exist, so it crashes. Go in the moveset command, delete that line, boom, you're done. Shield pose, if you don't import it correctly, it always is a jumbled mess. I hope this helps. Good luck. Have a good day.